So welcome to St John-at-Hackney Bell Tower. We've got a few of us here. Steve's the tower captain, but he's asked me to lead this evening's session for some reason. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through a bit of history, and the history is about not just this tower, but St Augustine's Tower, which is the other end of the churchyard. Some of you might have visited it. It's open the last Sunday of every month, and it's well worth a visit. So I'm going to be looking at the history of both of them, and then I'll show you a little bit about the bells themselves, and maybe give you a demonstration, and then you can ask questions about the boards, which a lot of you are looking at. And there are a few of us here: Jay, Steve, Angela, and Neil hiding in the corner there. So lots of people to ask questions of. Okay, so so here's the London Borough of Hackney coat of arms, and you can see St Augustine's Tower in it at the top there. Steve, do you know how to stop this going around?
Just do it. So take the slideshow off.
I don't know.
There's a pack, I think,
Side of the stairs, you can trouble me up.
No, that way. Yeah. Does anybody know how to stop the PowerPoint? Because Steve might need to help me out here. So,
Let me try once more.
we've got St Augustine's Tower. These are the bells of Shoreditch.
Shoreditch, yeah, they come from, because Hackney's made up of Shoreditch, Stoke Newington and Hackney. Those who are long in the tooth, okay? And this is a composite of those three bits, three figures.
Okay, next. This is St Augustine's Tower. How many of you have actually been to St Augustine's Tower? Okay. The rest of you should go. It's worth it, definitely worth it. And you can, because basically the bells were there before they came here. I'll tell you a little bit more about that in the next slide. So 1605, there was a ring of 5 bells at St Augustine's Tower. And then in 1677, they were recast into a ring of 6. What that means, I think, is that they were melted down and then remade into 6 bells instead of 5. Yes?
Trick, yep.
I'm on trial here. Okay, and then in 1743 they were recast into a ring of 8, which we now know means they got melted down again and recast into a ring of 8. And then in 1786 recast again, still 8, but a lighter ring of 8. Does everybody know what I mean when I say ring of 6, ring of 8, lighter ring of 8, things like that? Okay, so a ring just basically means a set of bells. They're not arranged in a ring, but you can imagine they are, because they come down the ropes. So each one of these ropes is attached to a bell, and in the tower they're not in a ring, but the ropes are arranged to come down in a ring.
Pulleys and things.
Yeah.
We've
Take the
got,
rope in different
Can we
directions.
just do the top left hand?
yeah, later on you can see, we've got cameras upstairs and you can see all
right.
Top left hand.
Anyway, carry on.
Thank you. So this is a ring of 10 here, because we've got 10 bells. We don't count that one over there. That's a dummy bell used for learning. But these 10 ropes are all attached to bells. So can you go back to the list of, okay, so when they're recast into a lighter ring of 8, it means that the 8 bells stayed as 8 bells, but they were lighter, meaning they've got a lighter the weight and a higher pitch.
Were they all recast locally in Whitechapel?
Whitechapel
They
probably.
were all recast at Whitechapel.
Well, yeah.
There's a big foundry still in Loughborough. I went to our college in Loughborough in the 70s. I spent a week in the Bell Foundry.
Oh, right. Interesting.
Well, I think in the past there were a lot of foundries in London. Whitechapel wasn't the only one, it's just the one that's
But
lasted
it's
longest.
pretty obvious for here, possibly. That's why I was
Absolutely.
Okay, so eventually, where St Augustine's Tower is now, there was a church. That was Hackney's parish church, but it became too small as Hackney's population grew and grew. It became too small, and they built a new church which looked like this. So you can notice that there's no tower there, no porches either, but no bell tower. The story is that they ran out of money, but nobody really knows, I don't think. Next. And this is, we've got a couple of pictures which show both the new church and the old tower. That's in 1812. This is the new church with the addition of porch and the bell tower. Although when the bell tower was first installed, it wasn't strong enough to house the bells. It still needed to be underpinned before the bells could come across and be rung. Here's another picture where you can see both the tower of the new church and St Augustine's Tower, the old church.
What angle is this taken from?
Sorry?
What angle is this taken from?
Also, this would have been from, I guess, where the bridge is now. Maybe.
Yeah.
Outside Iceland,
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
roughly.
Yeah.
And it's more
Yeah.
meaningful
Yes,
down
yeah.
the railway station.
Yeah.
And that's only, I think, 10 years apart, so it's a huge change.
And steam.
Wow.
And this is so if you've been up to the top of St Augustine's, you'll recognise this view. You can look across the trees and see the new tower from the old tower, which is quite nice. In 1955, there was a terrible fire, and the bells were damaged, so they were recast into yet a lighter ring of 8 in 1957. And then in 2002, they were augmented into a ring of 10. And augmented means they weren't melted down and recast again. We just bought 2 new bells, and this was funded by the Middlesex Association for Bell Ringing and a local family as well. So the original ring of 8 would have been an octave, and the 2 new bells were put at the top, at the lighter end. So the musicality still works. It still starts with an octave, it just goes a little bit further. These are the 2 treble bells that were added in 2004. What you might not realise is that bells are mounted on wheels. So when we pull the rope, we're not actually pulling the rope, it's not actually attached to the bell, it's attached to a wheel which has a bell on it. So this is what it looks like. The bell's mounted on a wheel. When we pull the rope, the wheel goes round. It carries on going around with momentum, which the wood doesn't really show. So you ring the bell, it goes round, and it goes round full circle. So you'll sometimes hear this kind of ringing called full circle ringing. And it really does go 360 because this little slidey bit is very clever. It allows, so this is called a stay, and that stops the bell going all the way round. So it goes just past 6 o'clock, as it were, and then when it comes round, the slider moves across and lets it go. And the bell's very delicately balanced at this point. It can lean on the stay. When we want to ring, we bring it to the balance there, so it's
Ready to go.
yeah, I call it falling off its perch. And then we ring it and momentum carries it around and so on. So you can see the wheels here. You can just about see the bells on them as well. And if you're interested, we can show you the bell being rung. We'll have to move away from that row.
You're doing big bell. No. Shall I change it? You finish
Go
it.
around the front, go around there? Yeah. Cheers, thank you.
Right, well, I can do this.
That's okay. Well, I want these two. Can we
Right,
can't
well-
just have two, can we?
No, you can't have two. You've got to top left or top right.
You want to see the one that's ringing, don't you?
Top
Yeah.
right.
Top right. There you go. Right.
So the others are down.
Watch the
because
volume.
They've got their mouths down.
So does the slider's not on the 6? The slider that we see bottom right, is that on the 6 or not?
Yeah, but this is, you want to see the bell turning over, and this is the best view of it.
Okay. All right.
So you're looking up into the
Can you
mouth of
see
the
how
bell
it
at the
moves
moment.
slightly as I take it off the stay and hold it on the balance?
Move out of the way.
You two places.
And notice, do you want to ring it again? Notice that the clapper changes sides. So actually, the clapper's moving, it's just that by the time it comes into view, it's already hit the side of the bell. And obviously, when it goes round, it hits the other side. And then can you put it onto the clapper, the slider view?
Yeah, sure.
Stay coming round and moving the slider across, which allows the bell to go truly full circle. And notice that when Angela's ringing, it doesn't actually lean on the slider, it just pushes it a little bit out of the way. When she stops ringing, she leans the stay on the slider, and it's safe-ish.
Unless somebody comes along and yanks on it, and then of course gravity takes it.
And after we finish today's session, we'll ring the bell down. What that means is that, so this is the bell up, ready to ring, but it's not very safe, because as Angela says, someone could just come and pull the rope. It would fall off its perch, the rope goes everywhere, it's quite dangerous. So we ring it down, which means that we basically bring it into that position, and then it's stable, because it can just move a little bit, but the weight of the bell's all here, so it's quite safe.
So these will move because they're down. But if I do that to that, it'll just
Basically,
fall off
don't
its
touch,
perch.
please. Let's be clear about this. All right, so we're all safe.
They have a finding balance.
Yes.
They could do.
And when you ring, you don't want to bang on that stay because you've got a huge lump of metal relying on two little bits of wood, and you can break those easily.
But they're designed, the stay is designed to break before the bell does.
So if you do
Because
break one of those, it
the
goes
bell's quite expensive,
like that.
we don't want the bell to be damaged.
Yes.
So if any, if someone does, we call it bumping the stay, let the stay hit the slider too hard, the stay will break before the bell's damaged.
Speaking as a relatively inexperienced bell ringer, what you get told all the time is you get told off for hitting the stay too hard. It's one of the things that you process. You don't ring smoothly like Angela did right at the beginning. It's hard. It's actually really
When I
hard.
learnt, and I was 12 when I learnt, I did break a stay.
Yeah.
And you let go pretty quick when you do.
So what's the wear and tear like on that? Because it's I know wood's quite kind of giving, isn't it? But
Yeah.
there's a lot of things that kind of can wear out. Like say the clapper hitting the
Yeah.
bell could change the tone actually over years.
It can be rotated a bit. Steve, over to you.
Okay, all right. The noise the bell makes will not change. It may sound slightly different because when a bell's fresh, you've got a spherical ball on the clapper hitting a very, very large surface. Over time, it will indent, so the surface impact area will slightly increase. But you are talking a very, very small amount over 50 years. It depends, like anything, the more you use it, the more it wears out. The thinking is that if the thickness of the bell, of the sound bow, which is the thickest part of the bell, is up to 2 or 3 inches, is less than 10%, is 1/10%, and that's the time to rotate the bell so the clapper comes onto a fresh surface. And again, it depends how much the bells are used, but you're talking about once in 100 years, so you have a sort of major refurb at that time.
So that's kind of about the tower and the bells. I'd like to tell you a little bit about what it's like to be a bell ringer in a band. So we ring on Sundays to call people to service, but we have the sound control open so that people outside can hear the bells. Obviously, it's not the same as when they were first installed, where they really did call people to service because people come using their clocks and mobile phones and alarms and things like that, unless you don't set alarms. But we ring, and it's, you know, we're part of the life of the church, and a lot of the congregation like that we ring. Once a month we go and ring over in Leighton as well. And then on Monday nights we have our practice, and for those of us who treat it as a hobby, which is everyone, I mean, we like ringing for service, but it's also a passion and a hobby. Monday nights is the time to learn new things, to improve our ringing, and also to be with other bell ringers, which is really important to most people. So for me, I see that there are lots of really different reasons people ring bells. There is the kind of musicality of it, the physicality of it, the social side. There's a mathematical side to it as well. So there are lots and lots of different reasons people ring bells. And then on top of practice nights, and some people go to lots of different practice nights, so you can come to the practice night of your home tower, but you can also go to practice nights at other towers, and in London we're lucky enough to have lots and lots of different towers. So you could, if you wanted, to go to practice night every night, sometimes two a night if you want. Steve.
Do you want to show a Mancroft?
Sure.
So you actually see about ringing.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Okay.
If that's what people are interested in. You've seen one bell in isolation. What we can use on the screens to show you proper ringing, as it were.
On Sunday mornings, early on, really before, you get bells on Sundays with
On the road.
very strange names, such as I've just noticed, supposed of surprise names.
Oh,
Yes.
lots of terminology, and Carrie will come to that. So, right. So,
This is a history festival.
mm.
One of my interests in it, as a relatively newcomer, is the age of the bells. So the tradition going back, and these bells they're okay. They're fairly, you know, some of the metal is certainly 17th century, but just across the way in Leighton, there's a bell which was cast in the 14th century.
Wow.
And it's otherwise, I mean, it's a very old church, but it's otherwise, you know, it's quite undistinguished. It's not famous or anything like that. But the idea that you can go and ring a bell that was made as long ago as that is, I find that a really powerful kind of feeling.
Well, you're in connection with the sound of the history.
Well, there's
of that
something,
time,
the continuity is kind of awesome, actually. And most church bells, most churches have some bells that go back at least 200 or 300 years. And that's really something, I think.
Yes, it's living history. It's fascinating.
Right.
Can I just raise the thing about, so you talk about the ring of bells.
Yeah.
I mean, you might come up to this later. But they seem to, when you listen to bells on Sunday, they seem to go out of sync. And I presume that it's...
Yes,
Well,
when you
so
bring them
they're
down.
following a pattern.
Yeah.
So what are they ringing here?
I'm just ringing plain, just the basic of all change ringing.
So we always start off in rounds, which is basically when you ring the bells. Say you've got 8 bells, you ring 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1 being the highest and 8 being the lowest. So you're going down the octave, as it were. But that would be quite boring if you rang that for, you know, a couple of hours. That would be quite boring. So we start ringing them in patterns, which we call methods. And essentially, what one of these methods does is it allows us to swap bells. Only swap 2 at a time, swap the order of them. So, for example, we start 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then you could maybe swap the 2 and the 1, so it goes 2, 1. Then you, at the same time, you could swap the 4 and the 3, so it goes 2, 1, 4, 3, etc. And you carry on doing that. And what they're going to ring here, plain hunt, is where you just swap. You swap all the pairs of bells the first time, and then the next time you kind of swap the intermediate, a bit like doing a braid. So you're swapping those two, and then you're swapping those two, and then you're swapping those two, and then you're swapping those two. And it's a bit like going around a maypole, as it were. That's the very simplest one. But then there can be really, really complicated ones, and you'll see some of these have run things like Cambridge Surprise Major, Bob Major, Plain Bob Triples. They're all sort of weird and wonderful names, which tell you a little bit about how many bells they're being rung on, what type of method it is, and how long it's going to take.
And some of them are very old, aren't they?
Some of the
Some of the
methods,
methods.
yes, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just going to take a centre, a couple of minutes out of this clip. All right, so just let it roll. And they're starting in rounds, going down the scale as carried as forward. And you can hopefully hear that. And once they've settled down, the conductor, Stephen, will say go. And then it will change.